All right, looks like Jimmy Butler Saga Season 3, Episode 5, the season finale, has been done airing, and he is now on a new team. He is now a Golden State Warrior. Honestly, this trade deadline has been pretty awesome, just because of the shock value of these trades, even though I hate the Luka Doncic trade for the Mavs, and I'm still hating that front office like I am an actual fan of the team. Just in terms of the sheer amount of all NBA level talent that's being moved around is actually pretty cool right now. Also, all these restrictions and trades and stuff have just made me realize that the new CBA, the second apron CBA era, just fucking sucks. And it was only created because billionaires are cheap, and they were crying about billionaires who are actually willing to spend money on their team, spending too much money. So now there's effectively a hard cap in the league. But regardless, it has been a pretty eventful trade deadline, or trades leading up to the deadline. I guess my initial thoughts when you look at what is a 5-team trade, which I don't know when I'm trying to figure. There were a couple of 4-team trades over the summer. There's usually been more multi-team trades the last few summers to effectively do your free agent signings, right? But I think it's been a while since we've had a 5-teamer. If I'm forgetting, somebody let me know in the comments. But Warriors will get Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat will get Andrew Wiggins and PJ Tucker, who was traded from the Clippers to the Utah Jazz. The Jazz will get Dennis Schroeder. The Pistons are getting Lindy Waters from the Warriors and Josh Richardson from the Miami Heat. And the Raptors jumped in here and are getting Kyle Anderson. By the way, the Heat will also get what is looking like it's reported to be a top 10 protected first-round pick in this year's draft. And that's most likely going to convey, because I actually do kind of I like this trade. Really, it's just a 2-team trade between the Heat and the Warriors, very clearly. And I have to say, I actually like this deal for both sides, especially given where each side was. Obviously, one, you have the emergence of Tyler Hero this year, who has just taken a leap and is looking like a pretty awesome on-ball offensive engine. And with the emergence of Khalil Ware and moving Bam Adebayo to the 4, which has also revitalized him in a very big way, and I think it is definitely worth keeping together going into the future. People were selling their Bam Adebayo stock this year because he just wasn't cutting it offensively. And as a Bam Adebayo guy myself, it was hurting my feelings. And then you can just add on Andrew Wiggins. I'm sure PJ Tucker's just going to be a movable contract over the next. He's still getting paid off of that deal the Sixers gave him 2 seasons ago now. But Andrew Wiggins revitalized himself this year, having a pretty good year comparable to his 2022 year. The last few seasons, he's been dealing with some personal stuff, and you can obviously understand why that affected his game. He didn't shoot the ball as well. And I think as a positive defender and a guy that will be able to create off the bounce a little bit when somebody, closes out to him, and, can hit a little floater, can get to the rim and all that stuff. I actually think this is a pretty good fit for the Heat. He'll just slot right into that starting small forward spot while you have, Hero, Highsmith, then you have Bam, then you have Khalil Ware. That's actually a pretty awesome defensive team that will also cover up your weakest link defensively in Tyler Hero. For the Warriors, obviously, you want to do whatever you can to make sure Steph Curry competes until he basically retires. And with where the Warriors were, desperately needing just some secondary shot creation, that's not a dribble handoff between Curry and Draymond Green, or trying to run, those split actions whenever Curry and Buddy Hield share the court together. Buddy Hield shooting a little bit better recently, but just had a dreadful 2-month shooting stretch. That was a big reason why the Warriors fell back down to earth hard after that, hot start to the season. I think Jimmy Butler is a serious upgrade over Andrew Wiggins, even if he is 35. And even if he was, obviously he wasn't locked in, everybody should have saw this Jimmy Butler thing coming. When Pat Riley made those comments, after the Heat got eliminated by the Celtics about how, players who aren't playing in the series should shut their mouth, and then the Heat not offering Jimmy an extension, we should have all known, from the previous times, a little bit in Philadelphia, but definitely in Minnesota and definitely in Chicago, that something was going to be amiss with the Heat this year, which was part of the reason why I wasn't as high on them as everybody else. But now he's with his team. He has his extension. The Warriors, literally within minutes of this trade being broken by Shams, he reports that the Warriors and Jimmy Butler agreed to a 2-year extension. I believe it's worth $121 million or something like that. But Jimmy gets his contract. He gets paid. He's going to be locked in. And he's going to be with an organization that, has the culture set in by Steph, and, they're all about winning championships. And Jimmy's going to be a very helpful player. I can't wait to see him operate under the gravity that Steph is creating, under the attention that Steph gets. Jimmy being able to operate with a compromised defense trying to guard him. Draymond Green, we saw him ravage those 4-on-3s for all those years. Jimmy Butler ravaging a compromised defense that is trapping Steph and Curry, which is what a lot of teams have been doing basically with the lack of another shot creator this season. This is going to be pretty cool. And the Warriors do have their big still. They still have Trace Jackson Davis. Kevon Looney is coming off the bench. And it's not like they gave up, crucial pieces. I just like that the Warriors, retooled and got Steph Curry, even though it's an aging star, a star regardless. Now, I don't think they're going to win the championship or anything like that, but I do think they will be quite a bit better than what they have been showing just by virtue of the fact that, like I said, Jimmy's another shot creator, somebody that can, one, draw a lot of fouls, get into the paint, but also part of the Warriors' early season run was the fact that they could just come in waves defensively. And with Jimmy Butler, though it is a risk because he's older, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green are still elite defenders at this stage in their career. And I expect the defense to get a big boost. Now, obviously, there is injury risk there. They're not as spry as they used to be, but Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler is a pretty good defensive duo as a foundation, right? But look, it looks like everyone got what they wanted. The Heat get to transition out of the Jimmy Butler era and, see what their young talent can do. Still have Jovic, you have Jaquez. Now you have this top 10 protected Warriors pick that is most likely going to be anywhere between 11 and 18. And you have been drafting your guys pretty well lately, especially now that Hero has finally taken that leap. I mean, Khalil Ware looks like he's just going to be a fucking awesome, awesome player and is kind of, allowed Bam to be moved to the 4 and have it not affect the spacing much or anything like that. I just really like what the Heat's future projects post-Jimmy. And, they have the talent to still be a pretty competitive team in the East, especially now that this whole thing is behind them. It was funny watching the Sixer game tonight, and then I saw on Twitter that somebody at the Sixers arena recorded themselves. They had seats behind the Heat bench, and the guy let Kevin Love and Tyler Hero know about the trade. They're like, hey, Jimmy got traded, and then he was explaining, the details, and Kevin Love was all listening intently. By the way, Kevin Love, low-key, has been very funny during this whole saga. I know I haven't really talked about the Jimmy Butler saga much on the channel, but I mean, what else is there to really talk about? He's done this shit 3 times, which is why I said at the beginning that, Jimmy Saga Season 3, Episode 5 is now over. It was you could see this whole saga coming from a mile away. Now the suspensions and all that shit, and seeing the war between Jimmy and Pat Riley, and seeing clashing philosophies and all that stuff, that was definitely a spectacle. But as far as why Jimmy was acting out and what he was doing and all that stuff, wasn't surprising. But it seems like everybody got their way. The Phoenix Suns have to be the biggest losers of this trade deadline, by the way, especially with that insane trade that they made where they basically gave up their 2031 first-round pick unprotected to basically get 3 first-round picks to try to spend this deadline, and you end up not getting Jimmy Butler, which they've been connected to the entire time, and then you realize, like, oh shit, Bradley Beal's not going to waive his no-trade clause, so we should try to trade Kevin Durant, and you, right now, as it stands, because Kevin Durant was connected to the Warriors before he was like, nah, I'm not going back, as it stands right now, Kevin Durant isn't going anywhere, so you just tried to trade Kevin Durant, and now he's probably coming back. I don't know if Kevin Durant will, like, obviously he's a hooper. He's not going to, mail it in or whatever, but Kevin Durant's going to feel disrespected. Bradley Beal's not waiving his no-trade clause. Nurkic is bitching and complaining about playing time he very clearly does not deserve. And now you just literally gave up your 2031 first-round pick unprotected for no fucking reason. And you're going to be stuck with those 3 first-round picks that you traded for, which is good, but you literally gave up your own draft pick unprotected. Anyway, real quickly, I wanted to touch on the Wizards-Bucks trade earlier today because a Bucks legend, and Khris Middleton is a Bucks legend, did get traded for Kyle Kuzma, basically. It does tell me one thing. The Bucks really must not have any confidence in Khris Middleton's, future health, and his ankles must be hanging by one tendon, because Kyle Kuzma is obviously not the better player than Khris Middleton. I actually think he's a negative player now. And even if you were to say that he could get back to his Laker days, Kyle Kuzma has only shot above 36% from 3 one time in his career. I saw Zach Lowe put this out, I think, but I think Kuzma hasn't shot over 34% since 2021, and he has been playing some very bad basketball for 2 seasons now. Yes, he is healthier, and yes, Kuzma is a bit bigger than Khris Middleton, but he's not a great defender, not by any stretch. Actually, he's a very terrible defender, and while Khris, is slower now because he had double ankle surgery and all that stuff, I would at least trust Khris Middleton in a playoff series as the third banana off of Giannis and Dame more than Kuzma. So this was either, I don't know. I see with the new second apron rules, I really am not as versed in the Bucks salary cap situation and stuff as I normally would be. But this feels like either a second apron decision or they were just saying like, look, we have no confidence in Khris Middleton's ankles. Because if you're talking about player for player, band for band, there's no way you're trying to tell me that Kyle Kuzma is better than Khris Middleton or that he's a better fit than Khris Middleton on this Bucks team. That's just, you're not going to convince me of that. So I would honestly, I feel bad for Khris Middleton that he got sent to Washington. But look, Washington has some, I know the Wizards are bad, but they have some young talent there. But I hate this trade for the Bucks. I actually think it makes them worse. But we'll see. Crazy trade stuff happening, and the deadline is still tomorrow.